Welcome to the Tech Decode Podcast. I'm your host, Akhil Minocha, and today we have a very exciting episode lined up on the topic of digital transformation. We are thrilled to have with us Raghavan N, also known as NR. Am I getting that right? Perfect. So, Raghavan N, a leader in digital strategy and transformation, who has years of experience helping organizations navigate this complex journey. A little brief introduction of Raghavan. Raghavan has worked across industries, leading innovative projects that leverage AI or artificial intelligence, IoT, and advanced analytics to drive meaningful business outcomes. We had the opportunity to work together on an executive program in digital transformation at IIM Lucknow, where Raghavan and me were batchmates or colleagues. And I can vouch for his deep understanding on how businesses can effectively utilize digital technologies to stay competitive in today's world. Along with my co-host, Suresh Kumar Tulluri. Welcome, Suresh, to the podcast episode 2. We'll dive into Raghavan's perspectives on digital transformation and explore how it's reshaping industries and business models. Raghavan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Akhil. Thank you, Suresh. I'm excited as well.
Great to hear. So let's touch a few themes in our discussion today. The first theme that I would really like to kickstart with or talk about is the definition of digital transformation. So all of us talk about digital transformation. That's a term that we hear all the time. But it seems to mean different things to different people, to different industries. So let's delve and spend some time on how how we can define digital transformation in the current business landscape.
Well, that's a very important question because a lot of definitions which are floating around are kind of being promoted by people who are offering very specific, narrow services. So therefore, there are multiple definitions floating around about digital transformation. So the questions about whether it is about technology, whether it is about business, whether it is about some combination of business and technology. My take is it's about the business transformation. Okay, so this is essentially, yes, technology is a very large part of this transformation because it is more of an enabler and a very important tool which is used in this transformation. However, the central piece and theme to this transformation is about people, because essentially the customers are people, the employees are people, and then the people who are managing the businesses and the beneficiaries are people. End of the day, technologies are used to bring all together in a meaningful manner that all stakeholders doing the transactions are happy and they feel benefited in some form or other. So what digital transformation in today's parlance means is it's about how seamlessly we can bring together all the stakeholders. I'll probably would like to step back a little bit and then try to explain something which happened perhaps a few decades earlier and then come to the current stage. Before cloud computing was very popular, okay, before the processor speeds were what they are today, before the handheld and other devices that we have today were not available, technology was existing. Okay,
Right.
so people were still conducting businesses and technology was trying to integrate the bits and pieces of the business together. So if you go back in time, the time when ERP was getting introduced, we may have to go back in time to probably in India, the ERP revolution would have started sometime in the early 90s. So since then, I've been kind of involved in one way or other. Okay, so the companies that I worked with were early adopters for some of the ERP packages which were available. So the transformation at that time that was happening was driven by there is a technology available, which is a box which is given to you. And how do you adjust your business and modify your own behavior towards your own customers? And how do you expect your customers to modify their behavior to the technology, etc.? The simple example is today we are all very comfortably using UPI and other things. The pre-runner for this was EDI, okay, electronic data interchange. Okay,
Correct.
so the digital orders are, I mean, they wouldn't even call it a digital order in those days. The computerized orders will be pushed to the vendors, and the vendor invoices would be pushed back to the company, and all these accounting, etc., would be happening in the background. Nobody would know how it gets done, but people would get what they need to get on their screens. But it used to be a very cumbersome kind of a journey. Okay, so you had to train the set of accountants in doing certain sessions. Either when if you're using Barn, so you had to train people on Barn sessions. Early adopters of SAP were trained in certain sessions of SAP, and similarly Oracle, whichever ERP packages that were running around that time. And each brand had a strength. Say, for example, Barn started as a manufacturing ERP, so manufacturing companies were very comfortable using Barn. The service industry was more comfortable using SAP, okay, and Oracle was more popular with the financial institutions and services. Today, what is happening is the business landscape has changed. Okay, so the business landscape has changed so much so that we don't know what industry we are actually in. I mean, am I part of the automobile industry, or am I part of the transportation industry, or am I part of a service industry, or am I part of a technology industry? So, given this change, okay, so this digital transformation in today's parlance is technology, yes, of course, but how are we modifying the technology to suit the customer and other stakeholders' behaviors rather than trying to modify the behaviors of the stakeholders to a static kind of a technology? So that, in my opinion, is the definition of today's digital transformation. And I'm sure this will also have an expiry date. So probably in another year's time or 2 years' time, this definition can also change with AI and other things coming in.
No, absolutely right. And you touched upon some very interesting concepts. And one of the things that you touched upon, which I am tempted to also speak about, is you talked about convergence of industries, right? You talked about industries merging into one. In fact, Suresh also comes from technology and a telco background earlier, right? Similar to mine. And during my telecom days in the early 2000s, one of our leaders used to basically talk about a concept called neighborhood seat, right? And what he was essentially referring to is that telco operator is not going to be a traditional telco operator. There is going to be convergence, and there's going to be neighborhood seat, so to say, where you'll have the device players, you'll have the OTT players, and everybody getting into the telco space, and the telecom operator also getting into the space of software product companies and software service companies. And in the technology side, we see that. So, Suresh, over to you. Any thoughts on the definition of digital transformation or any other thoughts in general? And once you complete, I'll give it another paradigm, and I'll relate back to Raghavan, our IML days, that course days in terms of a traditional definition our professors gave us. But first, over to you, Suresh.
So, well, thanks and great thoughts, I would say, NR and Akhil. For me, the way that I look at digital transformation based on whatever I've been seeing across industries is for every technology shift that comes in, the way that we are able to maybe adopt technology to create an impact in the business and the business process is how digital transformation really is about, right? It's more to do with wearing the hat of business and business models and how you can serve the customers in a particular technology area. And to give you an example, when cloud computing happened, all of the industries really looked at leveraging cloud in order to, maybe come up with new services quickly. And that could be, reducing time from about, 6 months or 4 months that typical industries would take in order to launch a service to maybe, few weeks and few days and so on and so forth. So, same thing is about also looking at how some of those new technologies could also be enabling newer customers, newer channels, newer gateways into trying to expand your business and so on and so on. So I guess it is a continuous process for me, the way I look
Right.
at it, and that eventually is all about relooking your technology, relooking your business, the business models, and the way that you operate in the system. So that's how I would define digital transformation in the context of technology mostly.
Got it. Got it. Thanks for that, Suresh. Now, Raghavan, let's revisit what we had learned, and I would like to reignite some of your thoughts on that and open it up to also Suresh, right? So, what some of our professors taught us was essentially three different terms that for digital technology to be transformative, right? It really needs to look at three different attributes. So, one is it should be general purpose, which means that it should not be intended for a specific activity. The nature of it should be that it should be general purpose. The second is pervasive. So, for a technology to be pervasive, so it should be path breaking, and it should bring customer interaction to life. So those were the points as I recollect. The third is what you spoke about, and that is bringing the power of convergence of technologies. So you were talking about convergence of industries. Out here is convergence of technologies. Our professors had given a term called combinatorial. So I'll just pause out here, and with that thought, open it to you, Raghavan, or to you, Suresh, on anything that you want to add on.
Absolutely. See, the way I look at it as not three different silos.
Right.
They're actually together. Okay, I mean, none of them make any sense individually, but
Right.
all of them make sense together. So
Correct.
I will say why it is general purpose and pervasive. See, I'm going back again in the earlier generations of technologies. Okay,
Right.
when you had EDI, okay,
Right.
EDI required for a seamless transaction, you required switches which allowed data transmission from point A to point B without too much of a difficulty or without the loss of data, loss of continuity, etc. So what it made was very, very high levels of investments in physical infrastructure between two entities. So it makes it very specific to two entities.
Got
And
it.
then it also makes it, say, for example, Cisco used to be the very popular switching system around that time. Okay, suppose you have invested in Cisco, you wouldn't be able to go to an Ericsson, or you wouldn't be able to go to any other emerging technology that may be more useful for a different application in your own business, in some other part of your business. So whatever Cisco had to offer you, you had to live with that. Okay, so Cisco would have been very good in doing certain things, but they might not have been very good in doing certain other things. Even though Cisco tried to attempt it by acquiring, I think, some thousands of companies and then trying to integrate a whole lot of things to bring this to some critical mass. It worked up to a certain extent and did not work beyond a point. Very simple reason is, like, when I was working in an oil company,
Hmm.
and we were moving from this EDI to SAP at that time. What we realized was at that point in time, in each of the location, and there were close to about some gas stations in the US, okay, spread across. I was an internal consultant making this change happening, so mapping and all that. So we were, I mean, for an oil company at that time of a size of some $50 billion, writing off a few $100 million was not a big deal. But even then, still lifetime was left in those hardware. Okay, they had to abandon it, and then they had to lock, stock, and barrel switch to something else completely. So today, when I come to this general purpose and pervasive, this is about, you are not asking anybody to use a different technology. What you are trying to do is you are adapting the technology
That's
to the
right.
devices that people are using already. Okay,
Got it.
and
Got
that
it.
by definition is combinatorial because it combines. I mean, you can use your mobile phone, your laptop, okay, any other device that you would like to use. Okay, so all that comes in together. At the end of the day, it puts the customer or the stakeholder at the center. It is your experience, it is your convenience, and it is how you want to deal with that entity that becomes important than the technology per se. So the
Correct.
technology kind of bends itself to fits into this.
Correct. Correct.
Excellent. Actually, I think that brings up another a few interesting points, right? When you spoke about technology and so on, innovation and customer centricity becomes two important factors of how you are going to adopt as part of the process, while being maybe agile. Agility again could be in terms of quickly adapting to the market changes, and it also rapidly involving maybe prototyping, any kind of iterative development that you can bring in. But if you are getting too stuck with maybe one technology and it is not general purpose and so on, then it creates an impact in the way that you can quickly move and keep customer centricity in mind. So I would say that okay, some of the other pillars, or if you look at common denominators or the periphery, you could think of agility and data-driven decision making, innovation, and so on, which one needs to keep in mind in that approach.
Great. Perfect. So let me move on now to we've covered digital transformation. We'll get into the relevancy in today's world, and post that I would like to get back into what is meant by digital, right? Just wanted to actually break these two terminologies. But like what I said, let's talk about relevancy of digital transformation in today's world. You spoke about your experience, Raghavan, across industries, right? And you're the best suited to respond to what I'm just going to be asking you. So my question is, why do you think digital transformation is more relevant today than ever before? You've touched on some of these aspects, and we would like you to spend some more time in what is driving the urgency of digital transformation today across industries, from the EDI days to what we see today.
Sure. I mean, traditionally the technology was evolving parallelly as the business was evolving, but the business cycles were fairly kind of very constant. Okay, so people were resigned to the idea that there would be economic cycles, industries would move in a certain economic cycles over a period of time, etc. But it's like a chicken or egg, which came first. I wouldn't be able to comment right now. I'm not the authority on that. But definitely, what happened was as the technology was evolving, the processing speed was increasing, which meant that we had more server space than required by individual businesses at some point in time. So this probably led to the first innovation that, okay, the excess capacity in servers, the server space, and the processing capacity can be put to use as a service. That's how
Right.
the cloud model started evolving. Okay.
Right.
So if you really look at it, way back in 97, 98, HP used to offer you Hewlett Packard used to offer you a service called, if you had a digital camera, you can upload all your photos into one of those up in the air servers. Okay, and you can download it wherever else you want. So people used to share their photos with
Correct.
families across continents. HP was looking at it from a very narrow lens at that time. Okay, so they were very busy developing photo quality printers. They thought that people would be buying more of those printers and printing them out. Okay,
Correct.
Google, which was just born, was looking at it completely differently. Okay, if people are putting so much of digital images up there, and then why the hell to print it? Okay, can we eliminate printing completely? So, so two different companies were thinking in two different directions, and like for example, whether in any technology, whether the Blu-ray discs or the CD-ROMs, which were going to win end of the day, so one over the other. Okay, the model, the absolute cloud model, whereby you have a handle device. Okay, so which enables this rather than having to buy another bulky device at home and then have to buy consumables for that. And then it's not about money, it is more about convenience. So what was happening was multiple industries were coming together. Okay, so it is not about the hardware company, which is more focused on printers, versus another company which is more focused on making data available or democratizing data in all forms, not just the numerical data. It is also the images, voice, everything possible. And then came Steve Jobs. Okay, so then this iPhone happened. Okay, so then in my opinion, that was the inflection point which brought all the devices together first, and then that opened up the minds of many people, saying that why am I defining the industry very narrowly? Okay, so around the time Amazon was happening, okay, they had disrupted Barnes and Nobles to become an online bookstores. Okay, and then they decided that bookstore alone is not going to help them, so why not move into everything possible? Slowly they started moving in. But if you really study the evolution of Amazon, today Amazon is more of a cloud service company than
Right,
anything else.
right.
Okay, and
So,
today they have integrated so many other things into that, and actually they are competing with McKinsey and others in strategy consulting. So
right,
the industry boundaries are kind of becoming very fungible. Okay, you can't say that I am in consulting industry, I am in this particular industry. The borders are very, very amorphous and porous. So every
correct.
industry is overlapping in one form or other with another industry. And everywhere, the parallelly another evolution which was happening was the optic fiber cables, okay, the undersea cables, and the satellite transmissions. So today, data transmission
Hmm.
is not limited by anything. Okay, the bandwidths are not limited anymore, and so there is a huge amount of abundance along with processor speeds which have gone up, storage capacities which are all over the thing. So the industry boundary kind of becoming very, very fungible. Customers are now seamlessly traveling from my day. When I suddenly realized that I have run out of toothpaste. I can order it on Blinkit and get it in 10 minutes.
Correct.
Okay. So when I go and order something else online, I expect the same level of convenience and speed in the other thing as well. Suppose I decide to order, let's say, hypothetically, that I want to order a car. Okay. So the expectation today is, can I get it at the Blinkit speed? I'm sure you would have seen news items where iPhone 16 is being delivered within 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
but at the same point of time, I don't realize why the urgency for something like an iPhone to be delivered in 10 or 15 minutes.
No, no, see, still you and I are stuck in our old paradigm, because the today's generation is an absolutely impatient generation. Okay, if I can get my toothpaste in 10 minutes or 7 minutes and blink it, why not my iPhone 16?
Actually,
Yeah.
actually, it is very interesting, and Akhil, I think I relate to what Raghavan just mentioned.
Uh,
Given that just pick up automobile as an industry, right? Typically, the way that you would buy or book a car would be to visit a showroom and maybe just give that cash, or maybe do some amount of interaction with the customer service representatives and then decide, right? But now almost all the car companies are offering the bookings online only for a test drive. Possibly you're going and maybe trying to experience the car itself, but it's available online. So for a typical dealer, why that? In fact, even the customer decision making for buying a used car is also shifted, right? Completely. It's no longer about trying to go experience that vehicle. It's all about trying to look at the whole body, the amount of checks that the vehicle would have gone through, maybe the online warranty certificates that you can potentially access, and immediately making a decision. That's what Cars 24 is all about, or Carvale is all about, and so on. They have really changed the way. So I guess digital transformation is really really relevant in much more today for any industry that you can think of than ever. When talking about automobile, Tesla, the one of the most popular cars of late, whether it is a Tesla or maybe some of the latest cars in the US, all of them are using digital technology in either automating production and take a software approach to vehicle design, which is completely different than the traditional ways of trying to design a car itself. So I guess it's far more in the light of newer technologies, in light of how customers are behaving than ever.
I would agree with you. In fact, to you also, Raghavan, and just to point towards some of the impulsive buyer friends that we have, Suresh, right? I mean, open a new market for them where they can not only choose the car, but choose the accessories, design a specific prototype, rollout, X delivery car, and just purchase it at the click of a button. The problem is, and back to you, Raghavan, I think it's painful to call the segment or the age that all of us are in as oldies, but oldies like us can't fathom or can't keep pace with the digital transformation that we see today. Anyways, this topic is endless, so I'll kind of take a pause here and get into what I was speaking about earlier. So, digital transformation essentially is of two different terms, right? So, one is digital, and the other is transformation. So I want to talk about digital. So when we talk about digital, there are different people who look at the term differently, right? Like some people think about digital as pure technology. So what a digital is, what a specific enterprise IT function does. That's one particular definition, or that's one particular notion that people have. Others focus on digital as marketing or sales, right? And social media is a form of digital. But to have a broad, holistic view of what digital really means, just to kickstart a concept or a theme for a discussion, digital is not just a thing which you can buy or plug into any enterprise or an organization. It is multifaceted, and it may and may not involve technology. So just kicking start my thoughts over to you, Raghavan, to respond, and Suresh, you to speak on that.
And if you look at the word digital, the origin of that is it means a finger. So when you pick up something, you don't have a manual. When we were born, nobody told us, not even our parents taught us how to use fingers. Okay, we intuitively started using fingers. I mean, we knew how to pick up stuff. Okay, we knew how
Right,
to hold on to something. So
right,
my definition of digital is it is as intuitive as using the fingers of one's hands. You don't require a specific training to go through to be part of the digital journey. Whatever device that you use, maybe the television. I mean, today television is no longer a television. Okay, I don't know what to call that because there is streaming, there is OTT, and then interactive OTT. Then you can also the same podcast. I can put it on the TV and then continue to have the interaction, and I can have multiple devices working together. So what it means is the convergence of technology from the point of view of convenience and experience of the user. Okay, so that for me is digital. So therefore I say it is as intuitive and basic as using my own fingers to do my daily chores.
very interesting analogy, I must say. Suresh, any comments on the term digital?
No, I guess pretty much aligned with what the industry will all be talking about, and in the last few minutes we already spoke about it, right? So when you look at the digital transformation per se, and within that maybe digital, it could be technology adoption, it could be about data driven decision making, maybe automation, maybe about connectivity, maybe about digital skills and all of that. And if you then look at transformation, that's where we spoke about, any kind of business model transformation, any kind of cultural change that is required in an enterprise, any organizational restructuring if it is required in order to, maybe support those digital strategies, including the formation of maybe, new digital teams which could sit aside with marketing teams and so on and so forth. So I would say all elements of, technology, elements of, decision making, etc., would form digital, whereas the transformation could be about the impact that it has to create, not just right now, but sustaining that kind of an impact, and how do you sort of go about it.
Sure. Now let's move into the challenges of digital transformation, right? So, I mean, just to correlate in my work life and what I do. So, I the conversations that I have with enterprises and CIOs of enterprises, or even GCCs, or the global capability centers. So that is a conversation more or in terms of either cloud readiness or software application modernization, right? So legacy applications wanting to modernize into, or the need to modernize into the new age applications, right? And to be more resilient, secure, right? And of good code quality. So that's the conversation that we have. But that's one aspect of what we are looking at from a digital transformation. I would like you to, Raghavan, spend some time in terms of the challenges that an enterprise today can face in the overarching concept of digital transformation, which would cover some of the other aspects too. And while you respond to that, I'll be also curious. You've spent length and breadth across different industries, and you're at Lucas right now. And I understand that you are going through a digital transformation shift at Lucas. So, at a broad level, what are the challenges there that you faced, and which are typical of the industry or even atypical of the industry?
See, there are two dimensions, or I would say some 2.5 dimensions of challenges in digital transformation. One is about the change itself, because we as human beings are very, very resistant to change. If something is working, why fixing it? It ain't broke, so don't fix it. That's the attitude we all carry. But
Right.
while the industry boundaries are kind of merging and industries are becoming boundaryless, marketplace is becoming more global. We wouldn't know from where the next competition would come in. And at the same time, we also need to compete with our own customers and we need to collaborate with them. So these realities are changing, and therefore digital transformation is required as an enabler to work with all these ambiguities. While we, at a very, very abstract level, at a strategic level, we understand this, how do we ensure that at every level in the organization, this is understood? I'll give you an example. Suppose, let's take the example of mine. We are a company which is into the automotive domain. Okay, so we actually distribute spare parts for the all vehicles. Okay, all vehicles that are moving on road, off road, and we also offer services of some of the very highly technical aggregates within the vehicles. And we also have certain other technologies and applications which are now relevant for, let's say, the electric vehicles, charging stations, and even we have moved into the consumer durable space with some of the energy efficient ceiling fans, etc., etc. Okay, so while we recognize at a conceptual strategic level how our own technologies, our own product related technologies can converge together to serve a larger breadth of customers, and therefore we can be in business for a longer time than anybody else. But how do we bring it down to the various organizational silos? So that is one major challenge in digital transformation. What do I mean by that is, traditionally, whether you are a multinational company or an Indian homegrown company, companies are organized either functionally or business unit wise. Okay, either you are a SBU, strategic business unit, and everything within that strategic business unit, or you are functionally, you have a manufacturing, you have an engineering, you have an R&D, you have a finance, HR, blah blah blah, etc. And then there is some general management level which brings all together. And traditionally, from an efficiency point of view, we have all companies, all industries have driven efficiency through standard operating procedures. Okay, there are, continuous improvement may happen, but the basic structure doesn't get changed. So what it means is the philosophy that the more I do the same things again and again, the better I get, and therefore my efficiency will be very high. Okay,
Got it.
so compare it with a startup. Okay, you do not have any designation. Okay, everybody is a founder, depending on whether you have put money in or you have brought something of value to the table. Okay, and everybody has an equal say, at least supposed to. Okay, and then it is all about a round table rather than a structure. Okay, and an organized company is competing with a startup like this. So the decision in a startup is probably 20 seconds. Okay, blink it. Okay, whereas the decision making in a larger organization is a process. Okay, you keep
Hmm.
blinking. Okay, this is so so this cultural shift is what is very, very difficult in organizations in adapting to digital transformation. So therefore, what ends up happening is the technology aspect of transformation is adopted. Okay, and then it is expected that, oh, I have brought in this magic wand of S4 HANA Rise, okay, with certain features. So now my company will get transformed completely. And now if it doesn't happen, then change the CDO. Okay, that's not going to help.
Yeah.
Okay, because this digital transformation touches everybody from the Darwan at the gate to the guy who's sitting in the corner office. Okay,
Very true.
so therefore, how do we bring about this mindset change? This is one challenge. Okay, on the selection of technology side, options are today the easiest thing people look at is, okay, I call in a consultant or a couple of consultants and ask them to make a pitch, and I make up my mind, and then I dump everything on their head and then expect them to deliver. Okay. So what it also leads to is we become slaves to certain technologies without
True.
understanding the pluses and minuses of that technology. Okay. So how do we really pick and choose? It's like a mix and match. Okay. So how do we do that? So in my experience, we have been running on SAP for many years in this company. Okay. So I joined here in the middle of 2020, middle of pandemic. So what I realized was probably less than 20% of SAP's power was being used. But for us to use it, I have to go and completely change the data structure within the SAP organization, which is impractical. Okay,
Got it.
so therefore, what is easier for me is create it's a AWS cloud where you start working on certain things which I don't have to do it in SAP. And I can only the final authenticated records can go into SAP, and SAP can be a repository and act as a what it is, an RDBMS to retrieve and put data in as and when I want. Okay. So then we also have a large distributed sales force and the service force and then the service franchisees. So how do we connect them? If I use an established software solution, right, like SAP, I have to modify my processes and partly I'll have to customize SAP. Okay. Both are expensive and time consuming. Okay.
Right.
So therefore, today in technology, what is possible is you have the microservices architecture. So for your Salesforce automation, say for example, we are on SFDC. Okay. So I can use that as a plug and play separately. And then end of the day, that actually manages the life of the sales guys. Right. And the data that
True.
comes out of that can come into a data lake, and it need not go straight into SAP as well. And then how do we put it all together in making it work for us? That is more important than becoming a slave to a particular technology. So that allows us the flexibility to pick and choose what works in which pocket of the business. Naturally, I mean, if you are going to use SAP for all, your HRMS is not going to work because SAP
Got
doesn't
it.
have a very robust HRMS kind of a system, and then you'll have to retrain your people to use SAP, and which is completely counterintuitive.
Very true.
I think what you touched upon brilliantly is the aspect of people and processes that are involved, right? Now, from just to sort of highlight the fact that as we look at these dynamic technology changes, one part of the challenge is about technology itself, which is the rapid technology changes that we have. Almost every day, you're talking about something new. Again, you spoke about some of those technology elements. In light of that, there is also changes related to the way that security is getting a prominence, right? Again, a security parameter. I'm sure organizations will be looking at a very different level or a sophisticated cyber attack, which could threaten any kind of data privacy, any kind of operational efficiency that will be there. So many companies are already going through. And even when you look at sustainability as a factor, irrespective of the time that you have taken actually to deploy the technology, very quickly, if the organization goal and the compliance and government rule come in, you quickly will need to relook at the entire technology stack. I'm sure for a company which is operating in multiple countries, they would really need to look at this technology challenge very minutely and really be on top of their game, right? And
True.
one of the other challenge that I see, especially in advent of AI, there is this term called ethical AI, right? How do you
True.
sort of implement, as much as you want to implement technology to the best, what is the perimeters that you want to draw? How do you sort of implement? What kind of regulations can you bring in? It's a lot more complicated world that will become, and hence, as much as you navigate through the people and culture aspect of it, and maybe there is governments which are also playing as a common denominator somewhere, but the technology aspect of challenges is really going to be maybe 10x of it, which is, trust me, I don't think it is even known at this point of time.
Well said, Suresh. So moving on, let's cover a couple of more pointers out here on digital transformation. So let's get into a successful or an unsuccessful digital transformation strategy. So, what do you believe are the critical components of a successful digital transformation strategy?
I think the most important thing is the company needs to decide on which are the dominant persona of customers that they are serving, from where they are actually getting their money today and where they are likely to get their money on an ongoing basis for a foreseeable future. That's a kind of a guess, but that needs to be decided. And for those persona of customers, what is the experience that will make them come back again and again to the products and the services of the company? And therefore, how would you kind of structure your digital journey around those personas? Okay, so that will be, you reduce friction to the maximum possible extent. I mean, avoiding friction is impossible. Because, so the multiple ways of doing that is, how are you going to co-create the solutions that you want to offer to the customer? Because in most of the cases, the consumer herself is not aware of what she wants. Okay, because the industry boundaries have shrunk and the technology has brought in a seamless experience for the customer. The customer experience is also boundaryless. So it actually, what I experience in dealing with Apple, I want the same thing with something else. Okay,
Hmm.
what I experience with something else, I want with Apple. So this is this is a kind of a dil mange more situation. So they want everything seamlessly. So therefore, choosing on the persona and then structuring the journey and then start modifying the internal processes, okay, to suit the customer's requirement. So that is the key to the entire process of digital transformation, digital business transformation, because this is today enabled by co-creating on real time with the customers. So the earlier times, if you look at it, you would do a very elaborate customer feedback survey. Okay, so pages will be generated, and then engineering companies, product companies will use a methodology called quality function deployment (QFD) to convert the customer's voice into what features and other features and various other aspects of the product spec. Okay, and then they'll create a prototype, an elaborate prototype, and that prototype will be tested out, not even with the real customer, on a lab or a simulated situation. And then finally, the first version goes to the customer. This concept started getting challenged ever since Microsoft came into business, because Microsoft would always release a beta version. Okay. And then they will go on improving it as as people start using and more feedback comes in. The real time collaboration is possible. Okay, the processing
Correct.
speeds are big, and the customers can contribute through any device. Okay, you don't require some specialist device. So the data is abundant, and on top of it, you have a layer of machine learning and AI, which enables the companies and even the customers to reduce the number of processes involved in converting this data into something which is more tangible. So the time to market has very rapidly shrunk. Okay, so it's from few months to now probably few days.
Correct. So let's now move on to probably the last question in our podcast, and that is, so let's start with you, Suresh, and you can probably answer that question and also the comments on a successful digital transformation strategy. So what I had in mind was just to conclude the podcast is looking forward, where do we see digital transformation heading in the next 5 to 10 years? So over to you, Suresh, first to answer that, and then Raghavan, you can answer, then we can conclude.
My view is that, from the future perspective, digital transformation is, again, I'll stick to the first point when I mentioned, right? It's a continuous process. I believe there is not a single industry which will need to have a successful digital transformation in place, as long as at least they take the initiative to be relevant in the market in the digital world and come out with those strategies. It is going to be maybe 90% of the strategy will be successful and maybe a few will fail, but every single company will need to have a digital transformation strategy in place. And I'll give you examples, right? Microsoft, and this comes to the point when you mentioned about successful versus maybe some of the failed strategies. Microsoft was doing phenomenally well when they had the software licensing, but I'm sure they had their own business challenges. And look at what it has done to itself. From a software licensing strategy, everything has moved to subscription based in light of Microsoft 365 and also in cloud computing. So their entire revenue model is completely changed, and that I would say is phenomenally successful, right? All the products that they have launched, right, from Teams to M365 to the way that they are trying to capitalize on the cloud journey, is really a view of how they looked at digital transformation and how their customers are going to behave in the future. On the contrary, you look at Boeing, right? Uh, Boeing also had a very good strategy to adopt latest and maybe modern manufacturing processes, and they implemented that on the Boeing 737 Max. Unfortunately, it failed because so many software failures. The strategy was not appropriate. Maybe they had some oversights and so on and so forth. So there are examples on both the sides, but I guess we have examples ranging from even the successful ones who are doing very well to the ones that who need to even start in light of the way that businesses are behaving. That is Nike, we spoke about automobile and so on. So I guess the challenge is about creating that start and not just depending on one strategy. You need to continuously evolve and keep yourself relevant.
Right, right. Raghavan, comments?
The way I look at that is the industry will continue to converge. Okay, there will be absolutely no who will be my competitor. Like for example, anybody could be my competitor. Okay, so from that point of view, the technology will also start converging. So what is fancy today will become commonplace in probably 2 to 5 years time. So like for example, the blockchain technology is likely to play a very very major pivotal role, not just from the transaction security or a transaction integrity point of view. The NFTs and the virtual reality, etc., are all today fancy. This will
Right,
become real, more meaningful, more practical for business applications. It'll be more like I have a known, verified source, so I'll be dealing with them without any doubts, and then there is a traceability, there is an accountability attached to it. So all those things will start coming in. So this will actually lead to what I consider as a digital acceleration. So we will start
right.
living in a seamless digital real or a virtual real world in a seamless fashion. Today it might sound like a fantasy or a science fiction, but I don't think it is very far away.
No, I completely agree. With multiverse and AI and generative AI and everything that we are seeing across, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. And just to conclude and present my views on digital transformation and what we will see in the next 5 to 10 years, digital transformation will be fueled by artificial intelligence, cloud computing, data analytics, and other pervasive and non-pervasive technologies. AI will drive automation, predictive insights with cloud and cloud based solutions providing scalability. The data will remain central to all of this entire growth by improving personalization, operational efficiency. Now, as digital systems and applications expand, security will play an integral role. Cybersecurity, of course, will play an integral role too. Technologies like blockchain, IoT, edge computing, and others will disrupt industries and continue to disrupt industries. And back to Suresh's point, the use of ethical technology would take center stage. Another point which I see companies like IBM, for example, are driving towards, and the company that I'm a part of, again, Cast is speaking about, is sustainability. Sustainability is niche today, is not thought of much in markets like India, for example. But I see sustainability, apart from ethical use of technology, or to kind of gain more prominence. Lastly, workforce reskilling comes back to the debate that will either take over human jobs or not, right? So basically, people need to get skilled. So workforce reskilling will be critical as companies continue to adopt tools, right, or technologies to boost efficiency, innovation, and innovative customer experiences. So that's my thought, and just to kind of now wind up, and so let me thank both of you, Raghavan and Suresh, and especially Raghavan. Thank you so much for sharing your insights on digital transformation with us and making this podcast and this open conversation very meaningful for our fellow listeners. I hope we've covered a lot today. I know it's been a lengthy discussion, but we've tried to cover different aspects and different themes which touch digital transformation. And I'm sure our listeners would gain knowledge to be able to navigate their digital journeys. To everyone listening, I hope you found this conversation helpful and inspiring as you think about the role of digital transformation, and as you think about digital and the digital transformation as an umbrella or a marquee theme in general. So that's all for now. Thanks, Raghavan and Suresh, and cheers, fellow listeners. Till the next episode, stay tuned for the Tech Decode podcast for the future episodes to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raghavan. Thank you, Akhil.